Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. My name is Suzanne, and I am the head coach at G.R.A.C.E Financial Coaching. And today we are talking to my friend Connie. Connie Portlas is an office manager and bookkeeper for artists who design public art and memorials all over the country. This is the coolest job. By night, Connie is a financial coach like me who's been teaching and guiding clients in the financial methods, philosophies, and principles of Dave Ramsey for 7 years now. Connie enhances lives by empowering others to make decisions with money, which help lead them to a financially intentional lifestyle. Connie's helped hundreds of individuals find financial peace through coaching, financial wellness seminars, guest speaking engagements, and by focusing on building and implementing a practical financial plan. Good morning, Connie. How are you?
Good morning, Suzanne. I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Tell me about this bookkeeping position with the public art and memorials. I was like, I've known Connie for a couple years now, and I had no idea she did this.
Well, I've had a lot of jobs over the years, lots of different jobs, and I'm a bookkeeper, not an accountant. I only have a 2-year bookkeeping degree, and I moved to Texas from Minnesota 4.5 years ago because I was tired of cold winters and was looking for a job. And this little posting on, what is it called? And on the online, it was
Indeed?
an online position. Say again?
Indeed or LinkedIn?
Something like that. I cannot remember which one it was. And it was just this little post that they wanted a remote person. This is before remote was a thing, right?
Yeah.
And I went to interview them. And it's just a very small company. And I get to work at home and I do their bookkeeping and contracts and just all kinds of things. And then sometimes I get to work on studio projects, and which is really fun because I like getting my hands into things. And they do beautiful work all over the country.
Wow.
And it's really fun. And they're really nice people too. Their families are nice. It's just the studio's in their backyard. Well, Actually, one's in Arlington, Texas. And the one I go to work with the most, she's in about a half hour from me. And I'm in Houston, Texas. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, but it's flexible too. So they know I coach. And so sometimes I do daytime sessions as well if it is a need for a client.
Yeah, well, and I know you and I have been to the same conferences and things like that before. So how did we get into the financial coaching?
Oh, financial coaching. Oh, man. I first heard about Dave Ramsey in 1993 when my husband and I got married, my second husband. Wish we had followed the principles then. Didn't, of course. Fast forward, kids, family, all that stuff. 2008 and 9 happens. And my husband was an IT contractor. There were no contracts.
Yeah.
In the process, we ended up, and this is the long shaggy dog story a little bit. We lost everything. We went through our savings, our retirement. We lost our house. We actually had to file for bankruptcy. I was an ostrich, kept my head in the sand and let my husband take care of all of it. But we dug out, and our church happened to be having a class, FPU class, Financial Peace University. We went, and it was like a light bulb. We were working against each other, and we started working together. So we're moving ahead, we're building, and then he dies in 2013. He has a massive heart attack, and that all starts. And 2 years later, they were offering the coaching classes, and it really was like a calling. I just felt like I need to do this. I want to help people get themselves out of messes. And so I went to the coaching training in Tennessee, and the rest is history.
So you were still in the coaching class. So for our relatively new listeners, the coach training that Connie and I went to is called FCMT, Financial Coach Master's Training. But you were still in the classes where they were physically having them in person in Tennessee.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Which was fabulous. It was fun.
I unfortunately was the first round of online only, which was still prior to COVID. They had shifted to online. The going through the courses yourself, going through the modules and the testing online and on the phone only prior to COVID. But then obviously with COVID, they had already moved to that model, so it made sense to stay. But, Connie and I go to Tennessee once or twice a year, right? Depending on when they're having their conferences. And so tell me about what kind of clients do you mostly work with? So it's been 7+ years that you've been coaching now. And what kind of clients do you find you're attracted to? What kind of clients do you find are attracted to your style?
I have 2 main types of clients. Single women, usually around my age, like their kids have left and they are finding themselves on limited income for lots of different reasons. And also young couples like in their 30s with little children, and they find themselves in a pile of debt, and they make really good income though, really good income.
Right.
But it's the whole brainwashing about using credit cards and car loans, and there's a lot of them don't have a sense of urgency to get out of debt, but they think that something needs to change because they feel like the relationship between the 2 of them is not as good as it was at the beginning of their marriage.
Yeah, definitely. We see that a lot. I actually have a very specific method for dealing with what I call hostile couples. And I certainly wouldn't call these couples that to their face unless I was breaking up a fight. But I have had in-person coaching sessions where one spouse has walked out and not come back.
Yes.
And that was after a 30 to 55 second screaming match. So yes, it can get very hostile. But to your point, sometimes it hasn't reached the hostility level yet. It's just hit we're not working together. We're not communicating like we used to in the beginning when it was just one kid and we were kind of on the same page. We've kind of drifted, or one's going one direction, one's going in the other. So they may be on that path to hostility, but maybe they find you first, right?
Right. Yes. And I think I relate well to them because that's what happened with my husband and I. We had a good marriage, good relationship, but I will say once we started working together on the money, became better. We didn't have to talk about money all the time. I find that a lot of couples in their 30s and 40s don't even combine their money together, and for lots of different reasons too. And they are it's so complicated trying to manage their household with gift accounts, and they're moving money all over. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm stressed listening to this. How can I'm not surprised that you're feeling this way. But a lot of them it's just poor planning. They don't plan for Murphy when Murphy comes into their life and something goes wrong. They don't plan for trips. They don't plan for kids' activities. They just put it on a credit card.
Don't get me started with the kids' sports and activities. It is out of control how much these things cost these days. Just last night, I see a $400 budget line item for baseball in, this is where we're recording this the second to last day of March. So I'm looking at the March budget and I go, what the heck is this? Oh, so-and-so plays baseball every year. Mm-hmm. I wanted to reach through the computer and hit somebody over the head. I'm like, he plays baseball every year. Why is this being added to the budget at the end of March? We went through an entire budget creation. But this, I will tell you, Connie, this really hammers home why when I start working with people, I really push 12 months of coaching. And I talk to other coaches and I talk to potential clients who think, that sounds like a lot. It's not.
Yes.
It really takes you a full year of learning your expenses to be able to be a true adult with your money, because I push sinking funds, and this should have been a sinking fund. I didn't even know about it. And I've been working with these people for months.
Yes. I have some clients I have worked with for years because they still can't seem to manage the money and they are frustrated with themselves. And then I have some couples that 3 to 4 months, they're on their way. And then we do check-ins and things, and they're okay because they did take it seriously and they are working together and they continue. So everybody's different, of course, but I know all about sports. Like you said, it's the travel teams are crazy. They're just crazy. I had kids that did it, so I know exactly. And my granddaughter is a dance, swimming, Girl Scouts, and volleyball. And my grandson's a gymnast. And yeah,
Wow.
lots of money. Lots of money goes
Yeah.
out the door.
Yeah. I think the one example I always go back to was a family that was referred to me. I ended up not working with them. I think they had spent $9,000 on one daughter's travel soccer league the previous season.
Ooh,
9,000. That included hotels, that included,
sure.
like, they were
Travel.
tracking it, but
Yeah.
they didn't see anything wrong with that, and it was
Yeah.
keeping them in debt,
Yeah.
in a lot of other debt. I don't know what happened to them, but that's probably the most egregious example that I've ever come across. By the way, she was 9.
Oh my gosh. 9. I was going to ask how old she
9.
is. I could see maybe high school if she was going for a college scholarship.
Nope.
But
9.
yeah, I have really woken up to that. One of my sons played lacrosse and rugby, and other kids have been in other sports and activities. Band. I sent a daughter to Europe for band in high school and college, and great experiences, of course. And I wouldn't do anything different, but I'm in those instances. But there was a tournament my son was in, and I think they were 9th grade, 8th grade, or something like that. And it said to be kind to the volunteers, this is a tournament, all that. And at the end it said, and remember that no college scholarships are being given out this weekend. Because
Ooh.
parents, and I am competitive. I am there. My son would tell you when I'm sitting on the sideline. But some of them are like truly crazy. And they
Yeah.
travel to every single thing that their kids in, even when they're in college, which I understand, but it's like, can you really afford that? Time at
No,
work
right.
and money for the travel. And travel's expensive. If
Yeah.
you don't plan for it, well, it is in general, but you need to plan for those expenses.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, Connie, I created this show to help people realize we all make financial mistakes, as we've already alluded to, and we can learn from the experience of others so that we don't have to make those mistakes. So, Connie, what would you say is the dumbest thing you've ever done with money?
Oh, Suzanne, you're gonna laugh. So there have been many, 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 many over the years, I will say, because I was married and divorced very young, did some stuff, married second time with my husband, and alluded to all that. I think the dumbest thing I ever did, and I say this because I am still a work in progress myself. I tell my clients this as well. I'm not perfect. Even though I've been doing this for a while, I still make mistakes. I still need a coach to talk to myself
Yeah.
sometimes just to run things by them. But when my husband died, I had not gotten rid of the credit cards. We're talking about credit cards. We had them, we paid them off. They were tucked away. We just didn't close the accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So he dies, massive heart attack, no $1 million life insurance policy in place, and procrastination, that whole thing. I have one daughter, 2 out of the house, one who just started college, and 2 in high school. I'm not working at the time, or just part-time. He was the main breadwinner. And there's a lot of commotion, stress, all of that. And there's social security income for my children. And so, I mean, we were not on the streets by any stretch of the imagination, but I started using the credit cards. Even though I had some savings, I started using them. And I had a balance. And then when I started coaching training, I still had a balance. But I had my savings, and it like clicked one day, like, this is really dumb. I need to pay it off. Okay. But that's not the end of the story. I never closed the cards. I just put them away. I moved. Everything's fine. Then my youngest son has a terrible car accident, October 3rd of 2020. A lot of things happened in 2020.
Yeah.
In Bozeman, Montana, he had just graduated from his training class and bounced off a mountain and flipped his truck a couple of times and half ejected, almost lost his left arm. It's a thing. My brain like clicked into shock mode. Like, it was terrible. And instead of using my debit card because I had savings and for travel, I took the credit card out again.
Wow.
Like, dumb. But I'm thinking, it's fine. I know how to do this. I'm just doing this because I don't want any hassle with rental cars. I don't want hassle with anything, even though it's not true. Debit cards work just as well.
Yeah.
But my brain wasn't working well. And up until last year, I still had a balance because then I got smart with it. I'm like, oh, I'll do this. I'll pay it and those stupid points. I'll do this. I'll get money back. Like I started playing a game with it. And like I had to wake up. My son's fine. Like I will
Oh,
say it's
thank
a
God.
miracle. Well, he has a cadaver elbow joint. And it took 7 months for his arm to wake up, for everything to work. And a year later, he went back up to Bozeman and he is working and living his life and it's all good. Yeah. So it's got a very happy ending to it. But I did, up until last year, I still had a balance.
So why do you think you went into this default mode of going back to the credit card? So it was a time of crisis. We're probably using our survival portion of our brain and not our reasoning portion of our brain. So any insight as to why you might have done that?
I think I was telling myself that I didn't want the hassle, with the flights and the car rentals, even though I tell everybody that it's not a problem, you can use it. It just seemed like I was afraid. I was afraid I was going to run out of money on my debit card. I was afraid. I didn't want to be calling my bank to tell them I was traveling again. I didn't want to get that call from the debit card saying, did you really put this? Did you really buy this? Are you traveling?
Right. Did you withdraw $300 in cash from an airport ATM? Right.
Right. Because my bank does a really good job with their security. It's annoying at times, but it's still very good. I do appreciate that. I didn't want to deal with any of that because I didn't know if my son was going to lose his arm or not. I didn't know. It was because I wasn't getting information. I didn't even go up there until a week after it happened because we didn't know where he was going. And then I just got smart then. And once we were home and he was on, we were still in the process. The year was a hard year for lots of reasons, with COVID on top of all of it. But I got smart then. I can do this. I know how. I budget. I'm paying them off. But I wasn't paying them off. I was paying more than the minimum, but I was never. And then I started putting stupid stuff on it, like my streaming services, because it's just easier. My telephone bill, because they want the auto withdrawal. And I didn't want to deal with my checking account just in case, kind of thing. It was just total lack of thought. I mean, and I tell my clients this, that we're brainwashed because you continue to hear all of the ads. You continue to see all of this stuff of how smart it is to use credit cards. I didn't need a credit score. Like I wasn't planning on buying anything on credit. So it wasn't like I needed a credit score or anything, but it's still in the back of your head that you want a good credit score because Credit Karma email comes and you still look to see what your credit score is, right? And I think it was just crisis mode. It just kicked in because of old habits way in my past. And I grew up in a family that we didn't talk about money, but I was very aware that there was not enough money. Very aware.
Okay.
And even though I knew, even when I was a kid, I knew there were things that could have been done differently.
Wow.
But yeah, because there's some studies done about that, some people never talk about it. And so it's calm in their house and some it's not calm. And it wasn't calm in my house when I was growing up. Yeah. It was really not calm.
What was one of the times you can remember like being a kid or, being under 18 and thinking my parents aren't doing this right?
Well, there's a lot of them. And my mom, I hope my mom doesn't listen to this, but I mean, we've talked about it, but my dad was a heavy equipment operator. And so money was really good in the summertime.
Okay.
This is in Minnesota.
Right.
But I tell my clients nowadays, if you have that kind of income, you need to plan for winter.
Right.
And poor planning. Yeah. You have to put money aside. And that didn't happen. So then in wintertime, we lived on unemployment. And grandma came through with a little bit of money, for stuff that my sisters and I needed. I remember this one that really, I think I was probably like 8 or 9. book orders. I'm a reader. I wanted 35 cents because they were Scholastic book sales. Books were really, really cheap when you ordered them then. They still are, but not as cheap. 35 cents for a book. Money was so tight. I remember my mother saying, let your dad get in the house first and have his meal. And my dad didn't say no. That wasn't what it was. He was, of course, he let me have 35 cents. And I shouldn't say let me. He had 35 cents in his pocket because you had to provide the money in an envelope with your order form the next day at school.
Oh, okay.
And so he had the change to put into the envelope. But I remember that. There's a lot of stuff that I remember about those kinds of events. It was still, I grew up in a very small town and we had a lot of fun, but there's a lot of stuff that, my children never experienced when they were growing up. Never.
We probably defaulted to, this is an emergency. I'm in survival mode and I don't want to run out of money. So really, I'm going to use somebody else's money temporarily.
Yep.
That's really what it was. And then
I can just equate it to a crisis. Just crisis. That's what it was. So when I talk to my clients or prospective clients, I tell them that it's real. I don't judge anything that has happened in their past, but it is in their past. Yes. And they just need to move forward, make a decision to move forward.
Yeah. So now do you keep any credit cards for emergencies? Have you closed anything? What have we done with them now?
Oh, Suzanne, it's terrible. I still have them. Haven't closed them. Mm-hmm. They're not in my purse. They're tucked away in my closet, like up there. And I don't know what it is. And I hear this from my clients. I'm afraid to pay off the balance and close the account. I hear it all the time from my clients. And I tell my clients to fight through it. And it's okay. You have savings. I have savings. I'm going to be okay. But I will say, being a single person now, and that's a real thing for women in, approaching, I'm not going to retire yet, but I am older. It's a real thing with finances and what the future has to hold as far as Social Security, retirement funds, the stock market, housing, all of that kind of thing. It's a real concern for women, I think, especially single women as we age.
Yeah, I think that concern really does play into closing. If you have a mortgage right now, closing a credit card is, even if the card's been open for 15 years. Okay, your credit score is going to drop by 45 points next month when you get your little credit card email. Maybe 60 points. Guess what's going to happen 60 days later? It's going to be right back where it was. Yep. And so I don't particularly have like a moral or ethical issue with my clients keeping one credit card open, maybe two if it's a married couple. But if we have 6 or 7, there's a real chance that we forget to use one of them and it gets closed for inactivity. And guess what, guys? If it gets closed for inactivity, it looks just as bad on your credit report, if not worse, because the vendor closed it on you.
Right. And there's no information of why they closed it.
They don't tell you. It's a red dot, and they don't say it's a red dot, but it's just a red dot on your credit report. So I particularly, I'm like, unless you are, like you said earlier, some of these clients who are transferring money in and out with multiple bank accounts, and you're like, okay, I can't keep this straight. How do you keep this straight? If we've got 6 or 7 cards open and we're sitting here saying, but I'm not going to use them, then close them.
Yes.
Then close them, because pick 2, pick 3. I don't care, but close the other ones, close them one quarter for the next year. Watch your credit score drop, watch it come back up, because you still have a relationship with debt in other areas of your life. But man, that inactivity, when they close it for inactivity, I had it show up on somebody's credit report when they went for a mortgage.
Of course. And that's when it pops up at the worst possible time, because you've got to scramble then to fix that. Exactly. And I think too, we forget about those annual fees.
Oh, yeah. And right. A lot of these cards don't even have annual fees anymore, but the ones that do.
Yeah, there are some that still have annual fees. And we all forget about them until it shows up on the statement. Like, oh, dang it. Like if you were thinking about closing it, look, when you are looking at closing accounts, look at the ones that have the annual fee and get those closed right away. If you're not, don't use those cards. I'm not using them. I just use my debit card, and but I do have it back up there in the closet, so I'm still guilty of that. But I don't really freak out with clients who insist on using credit cards.
Right.
We discuss it. There's a process. I'm not saying it's the right way, but if that works for them, it's their money, and I can't make them do certain things.
Right.
But I will say I have a couple right now I'm working with, and they use their credit cards, and it's only been a month and a half we've been working together. And he made the comment the other night. He's like, I'm not going to use these credit cards anymore. This is dumb. And I'm like, yes, that is so smart, because they are using them for points for flights. So, and they were using the points, and they have a trip coming up, and they are going to use those points and then close that card. But they don't want to waste the 100,000 points or whatever it is that they have. So like, okay, that's fair. Use it. You spent the money, you paid it off. So use those points and then close it. But it's that we have to get through the brainwashing and all of the advertising that we are bombarded with every day about credit card. Credit cards are good. Credit cards are necessary. You have to have a credit card. You can't get a credit score. You can't rent an apartment. Wrong. Can't buy a house. Wrong. Can't buy a car. Wrong. It's the banks are not our friends.
Right.
They are a business entity, and they are there to make money for them and their stockholders, and that's fine. That's capitalism in America, but they're not doing anything to help us. It's only for them. So we all think we're smarter than the credit card company. And I reminded a couple about they change the value of the points. That's why they never tell you that it's a dollar amount.
Yes.
They just change the value, and it goes down, and you have to have more and more and more points to purchase something. There was one, we were looking at it. It said they could use it with Amazon. So I'm like, okay, well, if you've got points, let's use it up before I close it. It was worth $4.
Yep. Yes. It's really funny that you mentioned that. I have a friend who has an American Express, one of the lower level ones. And this is like a hobby for him. Yeah. This is not what I spend my time doing. I hope he's listening because he's going to laugh. He literally will go through on a weekly basis, American Express's website, find which vendor has the best value points that week.
Yes.
And that's where he will shop. So if he's been waiting to buy something from Home Depot, and all of a sudden there's a deal that week or for the next 30 days through Amex that it's double the points, he will do the calculation and decide, okay, this is the week I'm going to go buy my appliances from Home Depot. This is the week I'm going to go. Yeah. And I was like, but it's a hobby for him. I am the type of person that would drive me insane. I could never do that.
A lot of work.
It's a game. It's a game to him, and he loves playing it. So I'm like, knock yourself out. I think it might be the only card he has. So it's not, this isn't like this isn't a full-time job. But it's just, I couldn't keep up with that. There's no way. I got too much going on.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. My brain started hurting when you were telling me what he was doing. I thought, wow. But I know people do. There are people who do that, and they move money around, and they have the cash balances that credit cards offer, so they can pay one off, and it becomes a game. And none of us get a credit card thinking we're going to go into debt. That is not the intention of getting a credit card. And then life happens.
Right.
Or we think we're smarter than the bank, and we get in trouble.
Yeah.
We get in trouble.
I think that is a great note to go out on, Connie. Thank you so much for your honesty and for sharing your financial blunders with us.
Well, like I said, I'm still a work in progress myself.
Yeah, we all are, right? I hope everybody will join us next week for another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. Thanks again, Connie.
Thank you, Suzanne.